I've been working on a project where I want to turn Blender animations into cartoons using a pin plotter. The software that I've been using to do this is called Vpype. I haven't found the exact method for turning the sample Vpype cookbook scripts into the script that I ultimately ended up using. So I'm going to show you what I want the ultimate outcome to be first, and then how I wrote a bash script based off of the cookbook that I'm given in the documentation, which I'll link below. So the first thing that I want to do, I'm going to look at the contact sheet grid. This contact sheet that I've made, the main things that I need to do are first, I want to make sure that the grid is laid out in the proper order. So in this case, it starts with the first animation frame, and then it goes 2, 3, dot, 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 dot. And then this will be the seventh, because this one is a 6 by 10 grid. So 7, and then it goes all the way until we get to the last frame right here, which will be the 60th frame. The other thing that I want to make sure is that the grid, there's no padding between the individual cells, but it might be beneficial later for photographing purposes to have a slight padding between them. The third thing that I did in this script is I have text in each frame that tells me exactly which frame it is, and I had to use this in order to properly align each of the frames in the order that they'll appear in the animation and not the random order that I was getting. The other thing that I had to do is I have exported all of these frames, and the frames, if you look right here, this is what each of the frame looks like. It's an SVG file, and it's in a 4:3 aspect ratio because I exported everything in Blender in a 480p ratio, which comes out to 4:3. But the problem is that the sensor on this camera is in a 3:2 ratio. And the only way to optimally put all of these frames on a single picture that I've taken with this DSLR camera is to have them in 2:3. So what I've ended up doing is I've actually squeezed the entire frame so that it's in this 3:2 ratio. So later I can stretch it back out, or alternatively, I might just want the 3:2. But I'll show you the script next. This is the script that I've written right here in green. And I'm going to show you the sample script that we're given in the Vpype documentation. It's called the cookbook. And if you look in the cookbook under laying out multiple SVGs on a grid, this is what it gives me. So it takes in all of the files in the folder that you're currently in that are labeled SVG. And then you can set here the parameters for the number of columns, and then it takes the remaining, it divides however many frames you have in this case, or SVGs you have. In this case, 60. So 60 divided by 3 will be 20. So it'll be in a 3 rows of 20 different frames. But that doesn't matter because I can change the number of columns, and then it just fits the number of rows to the number of columns that it's given me. And then I can also take each grid, or each cell of the grid, and then I can give it the aspect ratio. And in this case, it gives you the units. So I've done cm, or it gives me cm here. But in my script right here, I actually change it so that it's pixels. And then it goes through each grid. It lays out each grid until it's run out of pictures in the grid. It lays them out according to the 10:3 with a 5 centimeter padding. And then it writes everything to a final SVG that's named combine.svg. So this is the slight modifications that I've made to the script. The first thing that I've done is I hard-coded the width of the frame, or the dimensions of the frame. So in this case, it's 480p, so it's 480 by 640. The units I'm going to set later I've set to as a variable, and all of them are going to be in pixels. And I believe that this works because it's just text, and most things in a bash file are taken to be text unless they're having some sort of mathematical operation. And then the padding, in this case, I want it to be 0, but I also wanted to make the script parametric. So let's go through. The first change that I made is I needed to figure out how to take each frame in alphabetical order, which in this case is numerical order. And so I believe that this is Python, but I just put, what is it? I just sorted everything in this file alphabetically, and I believe that that's what this sorted does. So you can just steal this. This is Python and not necessarily Vpype or Bash. The second thing that I did is I changed the number of columns. I could probably set column here to be a variable, but I haven't done that yet. So once we go through, the problem that I have is that whenever you run this script right here, it lays out, it doesn't take into account the actual box that this frame is in. So in this case, this is a frame that's 480 pixels high by 640 wide. But the problem is, this script right here, it only takes into account the box that perfectly fits the image inside. So if you tried to lay it out, it looks like this. Copy V. It will lay them out like this, so on and so forth. And the problem is that in your animation, you might want to have things in the background here. This might just be one part of the animation or something to that effect. Or you might just only have one item. Because to me, the ratio is actually important. And the hacky way that I got around this is I've used these, you can draw a line. And I've actually drawn, I've actually drawn a physical box around each of the frames. That's the same dimensions as the height and the width. So in this case, I start here at 0, 0, and then it goes to frame width. So that'd be, yeah. So 0, 0 to 640, 0 to 640 by 480 pixels to, what would it be? 480 by 0, and then 0, 0. So that's all this is doing. It's just drawing a box, and I first hard-coded the dimensions of the box, and then I set those to the variables that I created. This last thing that I did here is I just created a text that is going to go into the file itself. This probably should set the dimensions of the actual box that the text comes in to a fraction of the frame width, but it works for my purposes, and I'm probably going to get rid of this in version 2. The last major thing that I've done in this script is I scaled everything down. So once you get to everything in this box right here is dealing with this is within the for loop for each box. So it runs this each time that I want to create a new cell. So, like this would be one box, and then it would create a new box, so on and so forth. But what I want to do is I want to take the final grid at the end. So right here, I want to take this final grid, and I want to shrink the grid into the 3 by 2 aspect ratio. And so the way that I've done this is I've taken a sheet of paper, I took into account the padding that I wanted so that I can put tape across here. And then within, I think this is a 1/4 of an inch padding on either side, I just calculated what a 3 by 2 ratio would be with the long side, in this case the 3, being 10.5 to take into account the 1/4 inch padding on either side, and it comes out to 7 inches by 10.5 inches. And this flag right here is the key. It's the F flag, and that forces the entire image to fit within the box that I've given this. If you don't do this, then what's going to happen is you're just going to get a box that you're going to get the entire image in the standard 4 by 3 aspect ratio right here that you originally set. So it's going to fit within the 7 by 10 box. So if you want to actually change the aspect ratio, which in this case I do want to do, but in most cases I wouldn't want to do, you use the F flag. And then at the very end, I wrote everything to another SVG file, which is combined SVG. And if you're curious to how I export this to the pin plotter itself, I use here it's called the Axi CLI tool, and then I just feed it bind.svg. I'll do an additional video on this later if anyone in the comment section is curious. So that's been my script. I'm going to post the script on GitHub. I'll also include the link to the Vpype documentation that I found very helpful, but incomplete in my opinion.